Hello, baseball fans. I'm Mark Davidson. This is the Chatter's Box, and on today's episode, we're going to review and grade the moves the Mets had made in the busy offseason they were having themselves leading up to the MLB lockout. On the offensive side of things, they allocated $124.5 million to three guys that absolutely do make the team better. Interestingly, all players are going to play in their age 33 season in 2022, not typically an age you get top-end production from, and so you hope the moves are financially savvy. The three 33-year-olds they're bringing in are Eduardo Escobar on a 2-year $20 million deal, Mark Canha on a 2-year $26.5 million deal, and Starling Marte on a 4-year $78 million deal. My favorite of the three signings is the Mark Canha acquisition. I'm giving it a B+, A-. Since 2018, Canha's been criminally underrated. His 126 WRC plus since 2018 is the same as Nick Castellanos. It's 2 points better than Anthony Rizzo and Chris Bryant, and it's 3 points ahead of Michael Conforto, who happens to be the guy he's replacing on the Mets. Conforto has edged out Canha on defense, while Canha has been the much better base runner, and all told, they have provided a really similar production over recent years. In fact, these two guys are essentially the same player, and they're also the two guys I mentioned in my underrated free agent portion on my first offseason recap video. Go check that out if you haven't. Conforto, however, is 4 years younger than Canha, but did reject the qualifying offer, and so the team that signs him will forfeit a draft pick. And I think what this boils down to is that the Mets are getting the same production at probably a lesser average annual value than it would have taken to sign Conforto, and that's a great start to 2022. Eddie Escobar at $10 million a year is kind of a no-brainer. He's going to provide solid thump and average to above average defense at third base and even at second, though I'm working under the assumption that he slots in as their everyday third baseman. This move bumps J.D. Davis from the starting lineup, which greatly enhances this team's run suppression unit. Just from a defensive standpoint, playing Eduardo Escobar every day at third base over J.D. Davis would provide 1 to 2 wins per year. That being said, J.D. Davis does, or at least has over the last 3 years, made up the difference with his offense as he's produced a healthy 130 WRC plus over that time compared to Escobar's 99. It's at least noteworthy that Escobar does hit much better from the right side, and the Mets have two lefties in Jeff McNeil and Robinson Cano, who can also slot in at second and third base. Now that's not to say that they'll platoon Escobar and McNeil, who had a very poor 2021 campaign by the way, but I think it's more likely McNeil goes into a super utility role. There would be plenty of ways for him to garner playing time, with some of the starters being guys you can probably pencil in for an IL stint or two, like Nimmo, Canha, and Marte, and not to mention Robinson Cano will be playing in his age 39 season fresh off of a PED suspension. And despite McNeil's poor showing in 2021, he still is rocking at 126 WRC plus for his career, and it's probably safe to assume he accumulates 500 plus plate appearances between outfield corners, second, third, and maybe even first base. But it'll be really interesting to see how the Mets shuffle Escobar, McNeil, Davis, and Cano. If the DH comes to the NL, Davis is the clear-cut DH, but having too many good players for just a few positions is never a bad thing. So thinking about the Escobar deal in terms of a letter grade, based on the price, his reputation as one of the best dudes in baseball, and the positional flexibility this gives the team, as well as the bench depth that it creates, I'm giving it a B. The Starling Marte signing gives me some pause. Not for 2022 necessarily, but as stated, he'll be 33 next year, and the mid-30s aren't so kind to speed and defense, which Marte's value leans so heavily on. About 30% of his value came on the bases and with his glove in 2021. And because his speed enables him to lay out infield hits and turn singles into doubles, a decent portion of his offensive value actually comes from his speed as well. Make no mistake though, Starling's a star. Since he entered the league in 2012, he's racked up the 27th most F-WAR and has been worth at least 3 WAR every year in which he's played over 77 games. But the Mets are paying him almost $20 million a year for his age 33 to 36 seasons, which means he'll need to remain a 3 WAR player to make the deal worth it. Which isn't insane, but there is a part of me that feels like they're paying him more for what he's done rather than for what he's going to do for them. Hold up though, he did spike a career high walk rate last year, clocking in just below average at 8.2%. However, most of those gains came with the Marlins, with whom he walked 11.6% of the time through 275 plate appearances. With the A's, his walk rate dropped back to 4.4% over 251 plate appearances. And peeling back some of those layers, part of the increased walk rate with the Marlins was because he saw more waste pitches, as 11% of the pitches he saw were of the variety. That rate dropped 9.8 in Oakland, which is right around his career average of 9.7. But then again, his chase rate, zone rate, and overall swing percentage were down with the Marlins. So if this is something he can access, that'd be a pretty big boon to his production floor. So what should we expect moving forward? Looking at guys who have made similar season-to-season improvements to their walk rate over the last 10 years, these are players who gained at least 3 percentage points on their walk rate, gave about half of those gains back the following year. Marte walked 5% of the time from 2018 to 2020 and 8.2% of the time in 2021. If he keeps half of that 3.2 percentage point gain, he'd walk 6.6% of the time, which coincidentally, or probably not so coincidentally, is what Steamer projects him for in 2022. Marte is also adept at leaning into a pitch. Since his first full season in 2013, only Anthony Rizzo has been hit by more pitches. Also, again thanks to his speed, he racks up infield hits. His 11.4% infield hit percentage is the 12th most of any player since he entered the league, and third most among players with at least 3,000 plate appearances. And of course, Mike Trout is the leader in that stat too. In other words, despite his subpar walk rate, his OBP baseline isn't as bad as you'd think, clocking in 340 or better in each of the last 3 years, and it's 346 for his career. However, whether it's the increasing ground ball rate combined with the decreasing speed, the coming off a career year in which he posted a 372 BABIP, the walk rate that doesn't feel quite sustainable, or the fact that historical comps don't favor him either, to me, a production cliff kind of feels imminent. Players that come up as historical comps to Marte include Kirby Puckett, Sean Barry, Bob Fothergill, Lee May, Marlon Byrd, Big McBride, Adam Jones, Alex Rios, and Roberto Kelly. And 3/4 of those players were out of baseball before their age 36 season. Only Marlon Byrd and Lee May played past their age 36 years. Now, historical comparisons aren't everything, obviously, and teams are now equipped with better tools to help keep players healthier and plugged into how to best access higher levels of performance. This group is really dragged down by their poor plate discipline, which, as we covered earlier, Marte may or may not have already improved on. 50th percentile projections probably have Marte being worth 8 to 10 WAR over these 4 years, with most of that value coming in 2022 and 23. And if that's the case, then based on new dollar per WAR evaluations of this free agent market, around $7.5 million per WAR, this deal is probably fine. But then again, and I know there's been a lot of but then agains, but hopefully you can follow me on this one. From 2006, the first year with stricter PED testing, through 2021, there were 93 players who accrued at least 8 WAR through their age 29 to 32 campaigns. Only 22 of those players managed 8 WAR during their age 33 to 36 campaigns, and overall they were 33% as productive from age 33 to 36 as they were from 29 to 32. Now, this group of players averaged 13.1 WAR during their age 29 to 32 campaigns and 4.3 WAR over their age 33 to 36 campaigns. As a data point, Starling Marte was worth 13.5 WAR over his age 29 to 32 campaigns. Now we're going to break this down a little further and see if better players had better results. Players who were worth at least 13 WAR over their 29 to 32 campaigns kept 35.6% of their value from age 33 to 36, which is not that big of a bump over the 33% production that the group kept overall. So based on that, we could expect Marte to be worth about 5 WAR over the next 4 years. But obviously the Mets think he'll be worth more, so let's find a way to look at these numbers that produces a more positive result in terms of future value for Starling Marte. Okay, so we're getting real granular, but players from this group who were worth at least 5 WAR in their age 32 season maintained 63% of their value in their age 33 to 36 seasons compared to their 29 to 32 seasons. And that one would get us there, since Marte put up 5.9 FWAR last year. If Marte maintained 62.9% of his value, he would provide 8.4 WAR over his age 33 to 36 campaigns. It's just that teams don't generally put that much stock into 1 year when they're looking at future value. Sure, Marte's 2021 bumped up his future projections, but you get it. It's just really rare for 33 to 36-year-olds to stay productive. And I realize that 36 is the last year of Marte's contract, but make no mistake, the end begins before it's over. Another aside and plus to this acquisition is it bumps Nimmo to a corner and boots Dominic Smith from the starting nine, and I think that's a good thing. Smith did underperform his expected numbers last year, but he's not a good defender, and I think it's best they probably pick his matchups, though he is also a possible non-tender. So where am I at? After all that hemming and hawing, pros and cons, remember this is my grade for this deal, meaning how I would think of it as a GM, and I think it's a B- or maybe even C+, and I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments why I'm wrong, and please do. For me, it's that fourth year of this contract that really brings the grade down, but I understand they probably had to go that long just to get Marte's services into Queens. Finally, on the pitching side, there is not much left to say about Max Scherzer. He's Mad Max, he's the third best player of the 2010s, and he is a surefire Hall of Famer, and the deal terrifies me. Steve Cohen must have a just preposterous set of balls on him because I can't stomach the risk that this deal brings. This is a team that starts with a ton of risk already, with a clear open and close window of contention, at least with consideration given to the current roster and farm system. DeGrom is coming off of a huge red flag season with regards to arm health, and he's signed for 2 more years and then a club option. It feels like whatever way DeGrom goes, so does this team. Now that risk is multiplied twofold with this two-headed monster at the top of the rotation. So if the Mets are lucky, they'll get 20 to 25% of their team's innings from DeGrom and Scherzer. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with Carrasco, Walker, McGill, Peterson. Those are good options, honestly, but there's just not much depth here after that, and the drop-off is substantial. And there's obviously nothing set in stone saying Cohen's checkbook is closed, but the team payroll is around $260 million already, and there's still a clear need for pitching depth both in the rotation and out of the pen. And look, a mega deal given to top-end pitching isn't a bad thing in of itself. In fact, Scherzer's last deal worked out as good as it possibly could have. But there's risk paying any player $43 million, let alone a 37-year-old pitcher, even if it is the seemingly invincible Max Scherzer. If Justin Verlander taught us anything, it's that even the unbreakable eventually do break. So through his age 37 to 39 seasons, will Max Scherzer be able to not only take the ball every 5th day over 162, but also do that and possibly more in the playoffs? I don't know. I know Scherzer's performance certainly hasn't waned in any real noteworthy way in his mid-30s, though his health has shown some signs of not being able to fully handle the huge workload, having started just 27 games in 2019, and he went less than 6 innings per start in 2021. It's the first time he's averaged less than 6 since 2012. Now granted, that could be a workload issue coming off 2020's abbreviated campaign, but also, of course, there is the dead arm issue that prevented him from pitching in the championship series against the Braves. And all I'll say about that is the Dodgers had no reason to treat Max Scherzer with kitty gloves when they hadn't inked him to any further seasons. And like always, I like to take a historical perspective on a deal like this, and to be sure, there are very few historical comparisons to pull from when finding out how pitchers of Scherzer's ilk fared in their late 30s. However, the pitchers that had comparable age 33-36 seasons are awesome. They're Kurt Schilling, Kevin Brown, Randy Johnson, Justin Verlander, and to a lesser extent, Mike Mussina and Fergie Jenkins. Those last two didn't strike out the guys like the others, but in terms of K- walk rate plus for their respective eras, they're included just so there are more data points. Now, the overall performance for these players from their age 33 to 36 seasons didn't deteriorate all that much in their 37 through 39 seasons. It's just that they pitched much more infrequently, about 33% less of the time, in fact. So I think over the 3 years Scherzer pitches for the Mets, if they can get 65 to 75 starts of a 2.9 to 3.5 ERA, they can call it a win, kind of. I'm sure this is all about getting a ring, and maybe it's not a win if they don't win that, but they can't be expecting to get 5 WAR per year from Scherzer over the duration of this contract. That's crazy, but that's how they're paying him. And because of that, this deal for me is probably a C plus B minus. And I want to go lower because the idea of Scherzer and DeGrom both being severely injured is a very real possibility. But I've also watched Scherzer absolutely continue to defy the laws of nature, turning in brilliant performance after brilliant performance after brilliant performance as he's aged into his mid-30s. So I don't know, Mets fans. Being 100% honest about these moves is hard because I don't want to rain on anybody's parade. My perspective is that sustainable success is better than small windows of opportunity. But maybe Cohen is just playing the hand he's dealt and/or is eager to announce himself as a winning owner, which has to be a huge change of pace for Mets fans. as the previous owners never really seemed hell-bent on bringing a championship to Queens. And if nothing else, it's a lot to get excited about. That's a ton of talent acquired for a ton of money. And in a sport where pinching pennies is too often celebrated, Cohen feels like a damn cowboy, and that's pretty fun. And really, that's what baseball is supposed to be about. So like and subscribe, or dislike and flag if you want. Comment below your favorite team, or where you're from, or that I have Steve Buscemi eyes, or whatever. Just talk some baseball. Baseball.